A Pakistani-French family, parents and a child, had arrived in Pakistan for the first time. They boarded a local Pakistani bus with a sense of trepidation. In the crowded interior, their dark-skinned son suddenly began to cry loudly. The father, tormented by the stares of those around him and old emotional wounds, felt a surge of intense anxiety. He tried his best to soothe his son. At that moment, a Pakistani couple said something to them that left the family in complete shock. What had happened to them? "My name is Adil. I am a Pakistani Frenchman of 30. I now live in France with my wife and our 3-year-old son. I met my wife while on a work assignment in India, and we eventually got married. I work as a journalist and travel the world, based out of France. Due to the nature of my work, I often have to travel abroad, and I've been to many countries like Spain and Italy. Learning new languages and cultures in the countries I work in is always a challenge, especially when facing a language barrier. But when I manage to communicate or meet kind locals, I feel the joy of being in that country. That's why I love my job so much. But, to be honest, I never want to go back to India again." There, my wife, who is a black woman, and I faced racism and had a very unpleasant experience. I first went to India 5 years ago, and it was my first assignment in South Asia. I went there with mixed feelings of anticipation and anxiety. Fortunately, the branch office there had employees of various nationalities, and we mainly communicated in English, so there were no language problems. I even managed to learn Hindi to a conversational level within a few months. Thanks to the diverse team at work, I rarely felt any racism in my professional life. My wife had been posted to India before me, and that's where our relationship began. Soon we started dating, got married, and had our son. My job, though demanding, was fulfilling, and I was living a full life with the family I loved. I remember vividly how happy our family was in India during that time. The terrible experience happened one weekend when we went out for a trip. We planned to go to a large park with spacious lawns. This park was a popular spot where many families went for picnics and to play cricket on weekends. I had heard about it from my colleagues and immediately decided to go. From our house, it took about a 30-minute bus ride from the station to reach the park. That day, we prepared lunch boxes, a picnic mat, and were ready to go from early morning. The bus was crowded with people heading to the park, but since we had queued up early, we managed to get seats. I sat my son on my lap, and we set off with excitement for the long-awaited park. After we sat down, more people kept getting on until the bus was completely packed. After a while, I noticed an elderly couple standing in the aisle in front of us, looking at us with a stern gaze. Their stares were so intense that I wondered if something was wrong. But we weren't doing anything disruptive, so I couldn't understand the reason. Then I heard them start talking to each other in a low voice. But since the bus was relatively quiet, I could hear their conversation clearly. "Why are these black people sitting while we are standing? This is India. Indians should have priority." Hearing this, I was shocked. I had never expected to hear such racist words directed at us so openly. My wife also heard the conversation. She lowered her head sadly. Thinking that the people around us might feel the same way, I felt extremely uncomfortable. Then, my son started to get fussy because of the cramped, stuffy conditions on the crowded bus. I worried he would start crying loudly, especially fearing criticism from people like that elderly couple. What kind of parents are they? Can't even keep their child quiet. It's probably because they're black. We did everything we could to calm our son, and eventually, he quieted down and fell asleep. But then we heard the elderly couple's words again. I wish they'd get off soon. Riding in the same bus with black people is just awful. That first experience of racism in India was a true shock to me. They probably thought we didn't understand Hindi, speaking so freely. But even if we didn't understand the language, no one has the right to say things that hurt others. The truth is, we did understand Hindi, and those words left a deep wound in our hearts. Even in France, I have encountered racism, but you can never get used to it. Each encounter is like a new injury. The trip to the park that day was hopelessly ruined. Since our son was still young, my wife and I tried to stay cheerful, But facing such direct racism, which was so different from our experience at work, shook us to our core. And similar incidents happened again. For example, one day when we went to a shopping mall near our home, we entered a clothing store. While we were browsing, I heard a couple in their 30s pointing at us and whispering, "Are those black people really going to buy something here? It won't suit them." Hearing that, we were speechless and ended up leaving the store without buying anything. Since then, we started to avoid shopping in physical stores and switched to online shopping, because at least there you don't have to face criticism to your face. Life in India, though rarely involving direct attacks, was often filled with humiliating remarks made behind our backs, but just within earshot, so we understood everything. That work assignment made me painfully aware that racism against dark-skinned people exists in that part of South Asia, and I never wanted to return to India. Our family no longer considered traveling to that region. But then something surprising happened. We got an opportunity to go to Pakistan. My boss had won airline tickets to Pakistan in a company raffle, but couldn't go due to work commitments. So, he offered the tickets to us. When we got the offer, we hesitated for a long time, especially remembering our terrible experience in India. The anxiety about traveling to a neighboring country in South Asia hadn't subsided. The experience on the bus and in the clothing store, where we were treated poorly just because of our skin color, was hard to forget. But our boss encouraged us. India and Pakistan are different countries. When I was there, I found Pakistan to be a wonderful country. Still, I was worried because my boss is white. Could his experience be the same as ours? In my eyes back then, India and Pakistan seemed like similar countries, but my boss insisted, "You will definitely love Pakistan." After his words, we finally decided to go to Pakistan as a family. When I told my wife about it at home, she was also hesitant at first, but seeing it was a recommendation from my boss, she eventually agreed. After that, we started preparing for our trip to Pakistan. We learned a few simple Urdu phrases and looked up information on interesting sites. But even before we left, we were still filled with anxiety. However, when we arrived in Pakistan, all our worries turned out to be unfounded. On our first day, we decided to take our son, who loves animals, to the zoo, as we had heard it had many rare animals. From the hotel where we were staying, we had to take a local bus to get to the zoo. Memories of the bus in India immediately flooded my mind. The fear and anxiety that we would be humiliated again because of our skin color rushed back. But for the sake of our son, who loved animals, we decided to get on the bus. As we boarded, we immediately ran into a small problem. We weren't familiar with the fare system and didn't know how much to pay. A queue of other passengers, also heading to the zoo, was forming behind us, which made us even more nervous. At that moment, I was afraid we would be yelled at for holding up the line. But then, something unexpected happened. A Pakistani man standing in line behind us kindly told us the correct fare to give to the conductor. With his help, we successfully boarded the bus, using the Urdu I had learned. I thanked him. Shukriya. At that moment, I realized that kind people still existed, and I calmed down a little. But when we got onto the bus, another challenge awaited us. That day, the bus was packed. We had to stand the whole way, holding onto the handrails as the bus swayed. I held my son tightly, worried that he would get upset and cry in such a crowded space. And, as expected, after a while, my son started to cry. My son's cries echoed through the quiet bus, making us extremely worried and nervous that we were disturbing the other passengers. When our son wouldn't stop crying, we seriously considered getting off at the next stop. But at that moment, a young Pakistani couple approached us. Bhai, agar aap bura na manen, yahan baith jayan, they said, which meant, brother, if you don't mind, please take our seats. They stood up and offered us their seats. We were both surprised and grateful for their kindness and accepted their offer. The couple also showed interest in my son. Kitna pyara hai, kitna saal ka hai, they asked in a mix of Urdu and broken English, meaning, how cute, how old is he? We chatted with them for a bit, and before we knew it, my son had stopped crying. This experience made a huge impression on us with its kindness and humanity. The man who helped us with the fare, the couple who gave up their seats, and the other passengers who didn't say a single word of reproach when my son was crying. The actions of all these people touched us deeply. When we were getting off the bus, that couple waved to my son, and he happily waved back. At first, we were afraid of inconveniencing others, but in reality, it was the complete opposite. From that incident, my wife and I constantly encountered the warmth of the Pakistani people and realized that among the countries of South Asia, Pakistan is a particularly compassionate country. Throughout the rest of our trip in Pakistan, we frequently met the warm kindness of locals at various tourist spots. For example, one day when we were having lunch at a restaurant, my son accidentally spilled his drink on the table. While we were hastily trying to clean it up, the Pakistanis sitting at the next table came over and actively helped us. Such a heartfelt gesture made a huge impression on us, and we were truly grateful for this culture of mutual help, devoid of racial prejudice. My wife and I even talked later, saying that if this had happened in India, we would have surely been yelled at. Another time, when we were in a souvenir shop in a bustling bazaar, I accidentally left my smartphone on a shelf. As I was about to leave the shop, a Pakistani woman noticed it and rushed to return my smartphone to me. This experience became another opportunity to feel the kindness of the Pakistani people, which is so different from what can happen in France, where if you lose something, it's likely to be ignored, or in the worst case, someone will take it for themselves without trying to find the owner. But in Pakistan, it seemed to me, there are many people who are ready to do the right thing without hesitation. Such acts, like helping others selflessly without thinking of personal gain, made a huge impression on me, showing the character of the Pakistani people. We also had the opportunity to visit the Badshahi Mosque and the Lahore Fort. Their magnificence and charm left a completely different impression on my soul. The vibrant streets in that area, the exquisite Mughal architecture, and the crowds of people were a source of novelty and excitement for me. The time spent there allowed me to feel a cultural fusion where tradition and modernity meet, creating unforgettable memories. The grandeur of the Badshahi Mosque, the liveliness of the food street, and the historical depth of the walled city. These diverse landscapes showed me another side of Lahore's history, especially the sacred atmosphere of the mosques, which invites visitors on a journey through time and spiritual depth, was forever imprinted in my heart. There we saw many handicrafts and traditional Pakistani dishes, which allowed us to truly experience the richness of the culture. Moreover, walking through the old city with the view of the fort impressed me with its beauty, where the old and new of Lahore harmoniously coexist. Walking around the city in that area was like a real journey into the depths of Pakistani culture. Wandering around historical buildings and visiting traditional shops and stalls allowed us to immerse ourselves in a unique atmosphere where the history and modern culture of Pakistan intertwine. This overwhelming beauty made a huge impression on me, especially the interactions with local people, which allowed me to directly experience the warm hospitality of the Pakistani people and their openness to guests. This trip to Pakistan became an invaluable opportunity for our entire family to experience the warmth and unbiased attitude of the local people. We understood that Pakistani people treat everyone with kindness, regardless of skin color, and we were sincerely impressed by this attitude. Especially my wife and I, thanks to this experience, developed a deep affection for the people of Pakistan. In fact, my wife started planning our next trip to Pakistan as soon as we got home. We are especially grateful that there was no discrimination or criticism like what we faced in India. We used to have a stereotypical view of the countries in that region and mistakenly believed that Pakistan would also have racism. But this trip completely shattered that stereotype. We are very grateful to our boss for giving us the opportunity to make this journey. His prediction that you will definitely love Pakistan turned out to be surprisingly true. And when we returned and told him about our wonderful experience, he smiled with satisfaction, and we decided to live like the Pakistanis we met, to be compassionate to everyone, without prejudice. We are wholeheartedly grateful that our encounter with the Pakistani people had such a beneficial influence on us.